Hi guys, this is Mrs. Fleming. We're looking at reading today for Wednesday. This is the video part of the learn that you're going to be doing. We're going to be working on the STAR strategy today, so I put that on here for you to look at because here in a little bit you're going to be practicing theme on IXL, and then you're going to be reading this rest of the story that I'm going to start for you today, and then you're going to be completing this graphic organizer and sharing your thinking on Flipgrid. So we're going to go ahead and look a little bit about how we're going to be able to do these things. And so today we're going to be able to support the theme of a play using evidence as part of our reading literature standards of being able to retell different stories and identifying the themes. And we're going to want to make sure that we can retell these as well. And this is a myth that we're working with today. And so this is a play or a reader's theater, or they call it a drama as well in our reading series. And this looks a little bit different than our normal reading stories. In a play or a reader's theater or drama, they have different characters, but these characters don't just say, I said. Instead, it has their names here. Like you can see here, this is all the bugs. Then Jen, bug number 1, bug number 2, and then it says off to the side what they would be reading, because this is like if they were standing in front of a stage and reading to you, and each person is a different character in the play, which is just like when you watch TV or movies. They are different actors who have different lines is what we call that. So if we look at this, there are different parts of plays. There are different characters, just like in stories that we read. There are scenes, which tells us the different types of settings a lot of times. Like it looks here, and this is a completely different background. You can see these are two different places that we're looking at. A lot of times in plays, there might be something called a narrator, the person who's speaking. There's also dialogue, which is what we just talked about, that makes it very easy to tell that it's not just a normal story because it says the person's name and then what they're supposed to say. So I wouldn't, if I was playing the character Midas, I'm not going to say, Midas, everything I love is here. Instead, if I know that I'm the character Midas, I'm just going to say what it says. I would just say, everything I love is here. And Marigold would not say her name. She would just say, then I'll leave you to your treasure. And just like with other stories that we read, there is a lot of times a moral of the story, or a theme is what we call that, or a lesson of the story, which we've worked on before. And so even though it might look a little bit different, it has a lot of the same things that we've learned about in the past with normal stories. And so we're really focusing on theme this week. And theme, remember, it tells us the lesson that we can learn in our life. We call that like the message, right? The message. It's all about me and my life. And so it tells us how to act or behave. And we've learned there's lots of different types of themes that there can be: compassion, honesty, and loyalty, right? And self-acceptance. We've also learned that this can be a longer phrase, something about that it's the slow and steady wins the race, and different things like that. That's not just one word sometimes. Sometimes it can be more than that. And we know that we want to practice this because this is what helps us in our own life, right? This is where we connect things and learn how we can change how we are. And it's that thinking inside our brain, like the inside out characters, right? We want to use this thinking voice to help guide us when we're trying to determine the theme. And in our own lives, we want to be thinking about the stories we've learned and lessons that they've learned in the story that we can use in our own life. And so the story we're going to read today is called King Midas and the Golden Touch. And the essential question that you talked a little bit about on Monday is, how do you decide what is important? Right? And so we're going to read about how King Midas discovers what he values most, what is most important in his life. And we're going to be using the STAR strategy when we annotate today. And we remember STAR means stop, think, and react. And we're going to be filling in this graphic organizer, detail, 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 and then theme. And so we're going to be using the STAR strategy guiding questions today. What is the problem? That's going to go in the first box. How do the characters react to the problem? That's going to go in the second box. How is this problem solved, or at least what does the character do to make it not such a big problem anymore? That's going to go in box 3. And then how do the characters grow and change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story? That's going to go in detail 4. And then finally down here in theme, after we've read the story and thought about these different details and these different questions to the STAR strategy, we're going to think, what is the lesson or theme that I can learn that I can use in my own life? So that means theme does not have character names. It does not have details from the story because it's something that I should be able to do in my life. And so we're just going to read a little bit together. I'm going to read the first 2 pages of the story to help model my thinking of how I would fill in the first box. And then you can fill in the rest of the graphic organizer on your own. Okay, so I see there's lots of different characters. Since it's just me reading, I'm going to read all of the characters, but again, I'm not going to say their names because I can see what their names are, and I'm going to pretend that I'm those characters. We are going to read this today when we have our Google Meet at 11 a.m. We can read this together, and if you want to read it again at 3, we can. But we're going to read this together as a class if we would like, but I'm going to go ahead and just read this by myself now. All right, this is scene 1, so this is kind of like chapter 1. When it says scene 1, it's kind of like the chapter. I know that if it's italicized like this means that this helps me know what the setting is supposed to look like or what the character is supposed to do. So I'm going to read it just for my thinking, but I wouldn't read it if I was really performing this play. So I can see that this is in the palace and it's in the early morning, so like they just woke up. All right, so the storyteller says, the story of King Midas takes place long ago and far away in the country of Greece. King Midas possessed more gold than anyone in the world. One morning he is counting his gold in his treasure chamber. King Midas, who's trying the last of his bag of gold. Oh, so much gold, so much wealth. I love it. And then Marigold, who's coming off stage from around the corner. Papa, where are you? Here, Marigold. And now she enters here. Counting your gold again? You spend more time with your gold than with me. I'm locking it up because I'm leaving on a journey. I'll miss you, Papa. I'll miss you too, Marigold. More than your gold? Ah, of course, I have a room full of gold, but only one Marigold. I see your friend Rosie is playing in the garden. Run along now. I'll say goodbye before I leave. So Marigold leaves. Nicholas! Okay, Nicholas enters. We don't know what he looks like yet. Yes, your majesty. Saddle my horse. As you wish. And then Nicholas exits and he ties up his gold into the trunk and locks it, and then he leaves as well. Okay, so I've learned a little bit about the characters. It seems like King Midas and Marigold right here are the main characters of this scene. So now I need to be able to fill in the first detail. What is the problem? Well, I don't know too much about the story yet, but I know the problem normally comes in the beginning of the story. And it seems right now that Marigold was a little bit upset. She says right here that more than your gold. She said, counting your gold again, you spend more time with your gold than with me. And she questions him again down here. And he says that he loves her more than gold, but you can tell that it's something that is bothering her. And he's really working on this gold and tying it up. And so it seems a lot of things about the gold. And even the title of the story is about his gold. So I'm going to say the problem has to be something with Marigold and counting his gold. You spend more time with your gold than with me. So I'm going to say here as the first detail of what's the problem is King Midas values his gold maybe even more than his daughter. Marigold is his daughter. So I'm going to say maybe that's my first detail. Now I would want to read a little bit further just to make sure that that is the problem, but that's what I'm going to stick with right now. If I want to go back and change my thinking, I always can. And that's as much as I'm going to read right now. So I'm going to ask that you guys read the rest of the story, the rest of the scenes. There are 4 scenes, and so you can read each one of these. Again, if you want to read with us as a class, you can, but you can read it on your own as well. You could even have your family each take a different character. that could be fun. And then you're going to fill in your turn book this record organizer, and again, use these star strategy questions to help you. So this again is going to be on here in your turn book on page 252. When you're finished, again, share your thinking of what made you write each of those details and what the theme was during in your Flipgrid, so I can hear a little bit about your thinking. And in between, if you want to practice some more theme questions, you can get on IXL as well. I look forward to listening to your Flipgrids.